Welcome, everybody, to the Drip Drop podcast. I'm your host, Ed Crasnick, and this is the world's first mental fitness variety show. We are a family podcast. We have conversations with comedians, entertainers, coaching with life experts, and comedy. That's right. It's all about the life skills you wish you knew as a kid, and because my childhood is a blur, it fits like a glove. We like to have segments on the show that are about solutions. So we have squirrel-news.net, the app that curates solutions journalism, stories of people finding solutions to all kinds of social problems, social issues all over the world, whether it's people or countries. And we find it at squirrel-news.net. We have two stories for you. The first one is about an 11-year-old boy in Paris who is finding a way to take the Seine River, the beautiful River Seine, and help with the pollution that's going on there. And he does it through magnets. Take a look.
On any given Saturday morning, 11-year-old Raphael is likely to be out doing what he likes best, fishing, but not in a conventional way. This is a magnet that can lift up to 1 ton. I started doing this because I thought it would be fun to do, but it quickly became some kind of hobby, or rather a job. Now we are doing this almost every weekend. We have to do it as others, adults, are doing nothing. They soon pull up more items, including a kick scooter and a metal barrier. But today's catch is far from being Raphael's biggest. In about 2 years, he and his father have picked up nearly 20 tons of scrap metal. One day, he caught around 50 bicycles. Raphael now has more than 20,000 followers on Instagram. Raphael's favorite pieces are currently exhibited in a little pop-up museum right next to the River Seine. 2 containers full of pedal bikes, watches or bayonets, all with their own little story. At least that's what Raphael imagines.
Amazing stuff. Amazing way people have of cleaning up the world, of finding solutions all over the planet, okay? Here's another interesting story. Of course, mental health, mental fitness is a big issue around the world, and there's a big stigma behind it. There's a lot of prejudice behind it in a country like China, for example. So China, in Shanghai, there is a mental health center, and not a lot of support for that center. People look down on for seeking mental health treatment, seeking mental support. And so there's a cafeteria in the same building with that center, and they came up with a really sweet solution. They came up with a cookie, moon cookies is what they call it. And they started just putting this out on social media as a way to raise awareness about mental health. It set off a whole movement about support and about taking away the stigma, taking away the pressure behind mental health and behind people who are seeking treatment, seeking help, seeking support, which is always, of course, a really positive thing to do. And combining it with a bakery, of course, is my favorite thing that I can ever imagine. Baked goods and mental fitness together again. So thanks to our friends at Squirrel News, squirrel-news.net, for all your solutions journalism, something that changes your perspective on the news. There's actually good news going on, solutions news, creative news, innovation going on all the time. And now we're becoming aware of it, just like becoming aware of how to take care of ourselves emotionally. Okay? Okay. Welcome back to part 2 of my interview with paddleboarding expert and mental health enthusiast, Mike Shoreman. Well, I wish that you were my teacher, because I went out on a paddleboard a couple of weeks ago, and I had shorts on. Talk about hubris. I thought I was going to be fine. I thought I wasn't going to fall. And I had shorts on and I had a phone in my pocket and I had a wallet in my pocket. Okay. My daughter's paddling around. She's having a great time. I fell in the water. I can't swim.
Oh no.
So I fell in
Oh
the
no.
water. I can't swim. And I'm really like, for a few seconds there, I'm like thinking, ooh, this is kind of a strange way to go. This may not be the best. It's going to make a bad headline. Father thinks he's better than the water. And so I lost my phone, completely got gutted, my wallet completely drenched. I found the board and I got back up. But I swear it was my mindset of, I'm going to be, it's going to be fine. I'm not going to fall. And so thinking that you're not going to fall really sets you up for falling.
Yeah. 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 So I would just tell people that they're going to fall. And it was like, I usually did my lessons 6 to 8 people. And maybe one would fall out of all of them. And it was mostly beginners. But I'd give like a lesson on the beach before, like I'd go over the anatomy of all the equipment and what we were gonna do so that they were all prepped for being out there. When I first learned how to paddleboard, I was terrible, and they just threw me in the lake. I think I spent 40 out of 60 minutes in the water. So when I started my thing, I was like, no, I want to do this differently. I want to set them up for success. We're going to spend, 15 minutes on the beach out of like an hour and a half and go over safety and all of this. And I found that, prepping people for what might happen was proactive in making sure, that they had the best time and that, wallets and phones weren't
Right. Yes, sure. For most people, they would think that, unless they were not paying attention to anything, which is that's what I do best. Mike, I want to talk about the work that you're doing for Jack.com. I want to talk about the Great Lakes Crossing. I want to talk about your dad. But before we get to, and I want to talk about your book, but before we get to all that, I want to play a little game with you, because what I think should happen is that we don't know, a lot of us don't know how our brain works, because we don't really have a conscious relationship with what the brain does and how we can talk to our brain and how we can make choices, whether it's through gratitude or whether it's through self-talk or however you do it. So I think there should be a brain license exam that literally helps you learn how to drive your brain. And so so I've come up with a few questions. I'm just going to ask you 3, and they're multiple choice questions, just like a driver's license exam.
Okay.
So this is the brain driver's license exam. When you have a negative thought, you should A, steer away from the thought and think you're a bad person. B, choose a better thought. C, notice the thought and let it pass. Or D, blame your parents.
Oh, D.
You're right. That's the correct answer. I'm so surprised. I thought you were going to go high. You went low. I love it.
No, let's just throw him under the bus.
You went low. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased about that. Yeah, the 3 things. Well, of course, we're going to blame our parents. Of course, we're going to blame our parents. The thing is, any of those other things, choosing a better thought, noticing a thought, and letting it pass. Of course, you could do that, and that would make you feel better, and it would make you, be able to be more mobile and facile, and it would let your brain know that you're okay. But no, by all means, blame your parents, and blame my parents, even though they're not around. Okay, so that's question 1. Question number 2, where I will find it here in a second. While we're doing this, play amongst yourselves. When thinking that you're not enough, you should A, try really hard. B, merge the thought with ice cream. C, question the thought by asking if it's really true. Or D, beat yourself up and blame your parents.
C.
C, you say, question the thought by asking if it's really true. Yeah. Have you done that?
Yeah.
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 The magic of talking to yourself as you would a friend is amazing.
Yeah. Being kind to yourself and being, speak to yourself like you would your best friend.
Could be. You could try it. Even if you don't believe it, you can try it and see what happens. See, you don't have to believe these things. You don't have to believe, you don't have to feel that way. You don't have to automatically, and you don't have to do it perfectly. Just the intention of thinking that you might possibly be a friend can change your life. All right. The final question. When you feel stuck at a red light because friends seem to be ignoring you, you should A, beat yourself up immediately. B, shame them on social media. C, talk to yourself like a friend. And D, try to avoid your feelings and blame your parents.
Just blaming of the parent. I'm not going to choose it this time because I've already thrown them.
Nice shift. Yeah, they're already gone.
We're gonna go back to C again.
Talk to yourself like a friend. We were just talking about that. Yes, self-talk, what you tell yourself, the power of what you think and conscious thinking is really interesting. It has a tremendous power no matter what age you are. And even if your only intention is, even if you don't believe any of this stuff, just say it. You're going to say negative things anyway. Try it.
I think with that one in particular, I have experienced that. As many have. So I remember, losing the mobility and everything. My life slowed down, whereas everybody else's life continued to go at a regular speed. So I messaged people, and there were friends who did check it during that period. Um, but there were other ones that didn't, and but their lives didn't slow down. So I would send a message, and I would wait, because that's all I had. I just had time. I had time and soap operas. It wasn't a great time. And I would just wait, and I'd be like, they're ignoring me, but they weren't. And on reflection and hindsight, people are busy. People have lives, and we're all just trying to do our best. And it can be incredibly hard to think to think that way. So just try to remember, you know, we're all just trying to do our best, and your friends and your family.
Good message. Good place to actually talk about your dad for a minute here, because I saw a post that you made recently about kind of the evolution of your dad and his view of what you're doing. Can you talk about that?
My dad was very supportive of me throughout my entire journey. Um, and he was very instrumental in getting me mental health treatment. Um, he actually made an ultimatum that it was required. um, and I took it, and it helped. But I wrote a piece. I wrote several pieces that were published. One, in the summertime, I got picked up and it ran nationally across the country in all the Sun News media outlets. So like Vancouver, Calgary, Ottawa, all across. And he wasn't thrilled. He said, you're putting yourself out in a huge way. And I remember thinking, I want to do this. This is gonna help people. This needs to be done. And it caused us some problems in our relationship. We didn't talk for a while, and he started, and then we came back to each other, and we started working on the relationship, and here we are now, and and he's very supportive of what I'm doing. He's going to be a big part of what's happening next summer, and I'm really grateful. But it did take some time.
Okay. So time is a theme here too. Figuring it out in your own time, and that things do take space and time. But how you're talking to yourself along the way is going to be a big part of that journey for anybody. And the support that you, and reaching out to other people, of course, is such a huge thing. Now, speaking of that, you are really a mental health advocate, and you have used this ability that you have to stand up, to bring the paddles up, to have these journeys, and you're doing a big one. This is a big thing. I mean, everything that you've done is pretty big. This is one of the biggest, and you're doing it for to raise awareness, to raise money for mental health care. Tell us about it, and tell us about how you train, and what goes on when you're on a board and you're traveling hundreds of miles. Like, what happens?
So yeah, no, it's kind of evolved into what it is now. Last summer, I paddleboarded from Rochester, New York, to Toronto, and for mental health charities, and it was going to be, the first time a person with a disability had paddleboarded international waters from one country to another. And I did it for mental health charities. So I did it for Canada's largest youth mental health organization. I did it for the Tyler Clementi Foundation, which is based in New York, and for the Trevor Project, which is based in California. It was wild. I knew it was going to, cause a reaction. I didn't expect all the media to descend. It was really overwhelming, but it was a great experience. And I remember thinking, on the other side of it, I covered 73 kilometers. And then we started thinking about it, and I thought, well, Lake Michigan is 76, like the crossing from, like, and I started looking at the first person who ever swam across the Great Lakes, and I thought, her route 76, and I did 73. So all I needed 3 more. So it was decided in September that we were going to do all the Great Lakes, but it hasn't been done. Vicky Keith swam all the Great Lakes in 1988. This hasn't been done since then, all in one summer, and it hasn't been done by a person with a disability. So I'm hoping that, one, everything goes okay, and two, that it raises a lot of money for kids struggling. And a big part of, I feel very kid-like myself in many ways. I identify with well, or I respond well with kids, probably because I feel like a big kid myself. And I remember in my mental health journey, I felt very alone and very, very scared. And I don't want kids to feel lonely. So I hope that we raise a significant amount of money for kids struggling. All the money raised goes towards programs and services provided to them, to keep them safe, and to give them the skills that they need to lead happy and fulfilling lives, and to help remove the stigma that is mental health.
Well, I'll just say that, I really feel like when it comes to mental health, we're all children, because nobody knows anything, really. This is a new endeavor, people looking at how they think and how they feel and their relationship to it. And I I do think that when it comes to mental health, we're all children. So kids are who we need to help first, ourselves, and then kids for sure. Um, and kids are experiencing so much panic and so much anxiety and so much, and they don't have they need a lot more tools than were needed. Of course, we've always needed these kinds of tools, but now it's very necessary for them to have these tools.
I just read an article the other day that Kids Help Phone has increased. They saw an increase of 350% in calls placed to their organization because kids aren't coping with it. And that is because of their lives being upended from this pandemic situation. They're facing they're feeling isolation from their friends and even their family, and the worry, the anxiety. Am I going to get sick? Is mom and dad going to get sick? So they're facing things that kids 3 years ago weren't experiencing. So we're seeing something huge, and I hope that this will it won't solve the problem, but I hope that it really helps.
Well, it's definitely going to help. And this is a time when it's really about how we respond to our thoughts and feelings and the situations around us. This is what the focus is, because the situations you can't change, but the way you respond to them, you do have choices about that. And we need to teach kids about that at a very young age and model it for them. You're doing that. It's amazing. I'm very inspired by what you do and by all the things that you have going, and by this crossing, and by everything that you've done so far too. And just a couple of the organizations I want to do a shout out to. Very, very interesting organization in Canada, helping kids with mental health, helping raise awareness.
They're Canada's #1 youth mental health organization.
Yeah.
They provide programs and services in every province and territory across the country.
Yeah.
They specialize working with Indigenous youth. And what they do is they train youth to go into their community, into their schools, do presentations to each other. So they're basically training youth to become young mental health leaders. Because kids don't want to hear from me. I'm an old man.
Well, if you're an old man, I'm a Methuselah. I'm a great grandfather, so it's okay. Yeah.
But the kids respond best to other kids.
Yeah.
And I see that. And I want to support that. So I really love the work that they do. And then the Tyler Clementi Foundation is based in New York, New Jersey. And it all started from Tyler Clementi himself, who experienced bullying. And he took his life because of it. And his parents started the Tyler Clementi Foundation, which works with LGBTQ youth across the United States, and helped them through their mental health, because a lot of kids and young people are struggling. Then you add extra layers of being an LGBTQ youth, feeling all those things, and then other things, feeling like they're different. And they work with them. So it's been a pleasure to work with them. And also the Trevor Project does great work with LGBTQ youth and kids. So I'm happy to support those organizations on the American side.
Fantastic work. Where do they tell us just the book that you have written, and there's also a documentary that's going to come out. What's the title of the book? It's a great title, but I want you to say it.
So it's called Crash and Rise. You can look it up. It's called Crash and Rise. Diaries of the Unbalanced Paddleboarder. So I think everybody enjoys a diary. Everybody enjoys reading somebody else's diary because we know we're not supposed to.
Perfect.
So I wrote it like a diary, and it's it's a diary going through a mental health journey, and there are some tips and tricks that I learned along the way that I've put in there with a lot of pop culture media references to make it light and fun, so that people can laugh, because I think laughter is important. People can find Crash and Rise or Diaries of the Unbalanced Paddleboarder on Amazon. You can buy it at Barnes and Noble, Books and Books, I think even Target.
So where do they find out everything that they need to find out about you? I think Monty will put in a graphic that will tell us that anyway, but where should they go to find out and to keep pace with the crossing?
Yeah, so you can join the fun on social media. We are just getting ready to launch everything kind of in a couple of weeks. So you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter, and everything will be coming out as it kind of starts developing. We'll be making, the big announcement of the dates and all of that stuff in early May. But people can follow me on Instagram. I'm Mike Shoreman at the Unbalanced Paddleboarder. And I'm on Instagram, Twitter, pretty much all the social media platforms.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, you're going to come back. I really want you to come back. And the next time we talk, we're going to talk all about all the nuts and bolts of what it is to prepare for something like this and what goes on when you're actually doing something like this. We're going to talk about those things. Okay? Okay.
Well.
All right. Mike Shoreman, can't thank you enough for being on the Drip Drop podcast. And I am just a huge fan. And I say to you, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you. Thank you to the entire Drip Drop team, and thank you to all the listeners.
Fantastic. The Drip Drop podcast brought to you by the Drip Drop app. Now, I want to tell you about the Drip Drop app. It's an incredible win-win app. It's the mental fitness app for Gen Z. The Drip Drop app is a place where kids can learn amazing life skills and life upgrades from experts all over the world and get rewarded for doing so. It's a whole community. It's a whole world. Join us. And I want to thank everybody on the show for helping us put this together. Thank you to Monty at HQ. Thank you to Sarah Jezik. And a special thank you always to my good friend, Jason Brown. That's our show for this week. Remember, no matter how broken we think we are, it's just feelings and thoughts. We're all okay.